now because we've done it twice. Here we go. So, welcome everyone. But no, in all seriousness, apologies for those that couldn't hear us. But welcome to another TLC Marketing Show episode. So I am particularly excited about this session. One, because it's close to my heart, as I'm sure it you all agree. Because the session today is about empowering women in the workplace. So we hope to provide insight on best practices for any brand, company or agency like ourselves. And I'm particularly excited because I'm joined by not one, but two incredible women that I work with here at TLC. So we've got Emma Bain, our COO, and we've got Elodie Rodriguez, who is our Business Development Director. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining me for the third time. And it would be great just to kick off, really top line, explain your roles here at TLC. Emma, if you can kick us off.
Yes, I'm Group COO. I've been at TLC for 17 years and I work with all of our incredible teams around the world.
Brilliant.
And I've been at TLC for 2 years now, working with amazing brands in the UK on some of their activation campaigns.
Brilliant. So, as I said, we're about to sort of deep dive and chat about what we believe can empower women in the workplace. And we've specifically come up with 9 ways for brands or companies in order to do that. And what we've actually learned quite a lot along the way as well in terms of our research and reading up on this topic. So we could be here for days, but we have sort of condensed it. And it's worth noting now, whilst we're talking, if anybody has any questions that they want answered, please put them in the chat, and then we will answer as many questions as we can at the end. So to kick off, one of the things we have actually done recently here at TLC is build an initiative that is focused on empowering women. And we honestly believe having this initiative in place has such an impact on our business, on our culture, and of course on our own people. And Emma, it'd be great if you could talk about this new initiative, as you were such an integral part of building it, and also sort of touch on why we felt now was the right time to do it.
Yeah, so it was definitely a team initiative. So Dana, who is our Middle East MD, and Dipti, who is our head of people and culture, were really pushing to have this in place. It's a combination of a virtual community, which is open to everyone in the company. We felt that was really important, regardless of gender. So anyone who feels passionate about empowering women. Within that community, you get access to tailored talks around issues to do with women in the workplace. There's a book club, there's a mentoring scheme, and there's also coaching for our senior female leadership team as well. Great.
I think the mentoring side of it is actually sort of such an integral part, and we talk a little bit later about empowering women from a young age as well. So I know that that's such a big part of the TLC Rise initiative. So from an initiative being put in place within a business, we then discuss sort of the second way of empowering women with a focus on the right values and the processes in place to actually launch those values as well.
Yeah, I think you mentioned about, why now? And, we have a whole host of cultural initiatives at TLC to reflect the things that we feel passionate about and believe in. And I feel like you have to have those values. That's almost the starting point before you can put these initiatives in place. Because if you put in place an initiative that's around empowering women, but clearly you don't hold that value as a company, then I think it can come off quite disingenuous. So I think it was important for us that we put initiatives in place that do reflect how we feel as a company. And I really think you can't have one without the other. So you can't have values without having initiatives to bring those values to life within an organization. And that's what TLC Rise is, to our passion for empowering women and striving for more equity in the workplace. But equally, you can't have initiatives without values to prove that it's authentic. So I think those two things really go hand in hand.
And when we were talking about this sort of internally, it actually came up about the attributes of those values. A lot of businesses will put those sort of words in place to obviously build on those values, but actually the attributes we discussed quite heavily, haven't we?
Yeah, I think that historically, and maybe this is more past than present, but there are different attributes that are seen as more maybe male or masculine, and others that are seen as more female, feminine. And I think as an organisation, having a real emphasis on attributes or values that are maybe typically seen as more female, I think is a really important thing for the whole company, for everyone. And that's qualities like empathy, kindness, compassion. I think if you are led with those sorts of values, you know, in your DNA, I think that really benefits everybody in an organisation, and particularly women.
I think on that subject, actually, it was last week. I was really pleasantly surprised by something that happened internally. So I was unfortunately the victim of fraud on my bank account, and they took quite a substantial amount of money. And just to warn everybody within the company, I sent an email and just said, look, be careful. This is the type of message that you shouldn't click
real.
on and things. Yeah, and it's not real. Just watch out. And Alec, our CEO, who's not my direct line manager, just sent me a message individually. Just said, hey, I hope you're okay. Obviously, if you need anything, you know, I'm here, let me know. And I thought that was really, really sweet. Like, he didn't have to do that, but the fact that he was there, just to listen, but also to offer up some actual practical help to help me out in case, you know, of any need. I thought that was really, really thoughtful.
Yeah, I think there's a difference, isn't there, between saying that you're a caring organisation and then actually being caring, and you know, that's from the very top down. It has to come from the heart.
And I think those little things have such an impact. It seems like such a minimal thing, but actually you'll remember that now. And that was actually something else we wanted to reference in terms of and another way that businesses have to think about is sort of the company culture and creating that company culture where women feel supported by the leadership team, which Elodie's just given a great example for, and then also giving sort of the confidence in terms of speaking up. And Elodie, I know you have unfortunately had sort of a past experience, but in terms of
with learnings.
Yes. With learnings. There you go. So I mean, so you sort of dive in.
Yeah, I can talk about that. Sure. So this was about 10 years ago. I wasn't at TLC. I was working in marketing and events planning for another company. I'd just flown out to the US, to Las Vegas, to run a conference out there. And at the end of the week, we sort of all the teams came together, had like a farewell dinner and drinks. And at the end of the evening, I got up. The rest of the team was still going to enjoy the evening. I just said, oh, I'm going off to bed. You know, really nice to have met you guys. I'm off. And the VP got up and followed me and then whispered in my ear, what's your room number? Which was really shocking. I was about 24, 25 at the time. I did freeze at the time, just thinking, I don't know what to say. But then I called my manager straight away, and he was fuming. He was absolutely fuming. Obviously believed me from the get-go, which I really appreciated. And then had a chat with him. And I also then followed up the next day with a call to this guy and just said that this was completely out of order, especially as I then found out he lied about being divorced to also increase his chances, I guess. But the point is, just having this supportive manager is hugely important. Obviously, you can't stop. You can have some amazing practices and processes in place, but you can't control what everybody does. And I think what's important is the response. And here, having a supportive manager that was there to listen to me, and then also feeling like I could speak up and defend myself and say something back to this man was hugely important to me.
Yeah, and I guess that's the sort of culture that your line manager has sort of embedded in the terms of if anything is wrong, if anything happens, you need to be able to talk to me about
Definitely.
it. Yeah.
Should say that wasn't at TLC.
No. This was 10 years ago.
Another world,
completely unrelated to anything TLC does as well. Very, very different.
So when we talk about sort of those values then, how does that play in the day-to-day? So, Elodie, again, I know you've had quite a few different experiences across different across multiple countries, but what have you found works well and what doesn't?
So one thing that I found very different at TLC that I really appreciate is this collaborative approach to every project that we work on. I'm naturally inclined to want to do as much as I can. I like to sort of push myself, but I guess that comes with its flaws. It means that I can push myself too much sometimes. And again, a different role, possibly about 5 years ago now. I was managing a multi-million-pound account purely by myself, and I loved it. It was amazing, exposure, amazing recognition, fantastic for my CV. But 2 years of doing that with no help, because it's my decision not to ask for help. It's no fault of that company. I reached burnout. I was exhausted, and I remember just quitting without another job to go to. And I guess, coming here at TLC, I'm able to still push myself and be as involved as I want on many things, but it's all about teamwork. Every response that we put together for clients, there are elements in there that I could never come up with, and that I may need team support for that. And that's really important, and that means that it's also safeguarding other employees from then reaching burnout. So it's great. Yeah.
And I think sort of a lot of the time we talk about the pressures we put on ourselves, and again we're sort of going to touch on that a little bit later, but I guess another something else to add in terms of empowerment is those processes, those values being put in place in order to prevent work burnout.
Yeah, I was listening to, just on that point, I was listening to a podcast. I don't know if you guys have heard of Glennon Doyle. She's an author. She wrote a book called Untamed, which is a brilliant book if you're interested in being empowered as a woman, especially. And on this podcast, they were saying that statistically, women are more likely to become more overwhelmed than men, which they talked about. The science behind it was fascinating. And they were saying that from birth, women are obviously conditioned in a certain way, typically to be the nurturers and the caregivers. So often we go through life sort of thinking 10 steps ahead, and there's like this ticker, they called it the ticker, that's always going on in our head. So in addition to the actual task that we're doing, our brain is also running a million miles an hour. I'm sure there's many men that have this as well, but the studies that they'd looked at said that typically women experience this sort of mental load more so than men. So I think that's maybe why in the studies they were saying that women are more likely to become overwhelmed. So I think that collaborative environment, people feeling that they can be empowered to do something, but that they have the support of the team around them, I think is a really important factor, but also for men, because I think we all need to have that support system in place. Everybody needs that.
I think it's also just an element, and I don't think we really touched upon this yet, in terms of teams at whatever level you are, in order to educate yourself. I mean, there's research being done on all of these topics, and actually without doing the research and without educating yourself, there isn't necessarily those sort of the drive to put these things in place in businesses. So I mean, reading books, taking in podcasts, sort of reading up on how some of these things have come through. So we've talked about the initiatives in place for any business. We've talked about the importance of values and those processes being in place. We've just touched upon sort of creating a collaborative environment, as well as preventing work burnout. And the next topic I wanted us to touch on is something I feel a lot of people, if you like, suffer with, especially women, which is imposter syndrome. So Emma, I know you did quite a bit of research, and this is where a lot of my learning came in when we were talking about it before. So it'd be great to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I was fascinated by this concept, because often when I've had conversations with people about imposter syndrome, I almost feel like I have to say that I have it, or I have had it. Otherwise, I feel like maybe I'm being a bit too cocky, or a bit egotistical. So it's almost like an honorary badge that sometimes I think we wear as women.
Yeah.
So I was really interested by that. And actually I was talking to some girlfriends about this conversation and asking them what they would like to hear talked about. And they all said imposter syndrome, because I have imposter syndrome. Yeah, they all said the same thing. So it's like, wow, I would need to know more about this. So it was coined in 1978 by two female psychologists. It's going back a long time now.
Yeah.
And they were looking at high achieving women who all had the same common theme, which is that they believed that they weren't very smart and they were just fooling everybody into thinking that they were. But I read an article which really rung true to me, which basically said that the things that they were describing, that these women were feeling nervous, feeling out of their depth, feeling out of their comfort zone, are universal feelings that every human being has when they're going outside their comfort zone and doing something new. But they, by using this term imposter syndrome, they pathologized it just for women because it's a female term, imposter syndrome. And then it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the second that you start feeling those very natural feelings of self-doubt or feeling nervous or feeling out of depth, you're like, I have imposter syndrome. And it's like almost like another way to sort of make us feel smaller than we are. So I think that a way to empower women in business, turning it on its head, is actually to normalize those feelings and, say to people openly that I feel very nervous, and I'm at a senior level, or, I'm going into a situation, I'm totally out of my depth, but I'm learning, but we're all out of our depths. And for women to see that modeled, so that when they feel those feelings, they're like, it's okay that I feel that way. And I'm not an imposter. It's just that this is a human experience. Everybody, men and women, all feel the same.
And you, I was going to say, you made a good point by saying it's important that even people at the top say that as well. So that achieving that status feels a bit more doable. I think when you're just starting.
But it's actually a little terrifying that the research and sort of the background into it is that as women, we've basically been told to have imposter syndrome. And I know that from personal experience, I've definitely put myself in that box where I feel I've got it. And I always sort of associate it in the time of my life now where I'm at in my career is I associate it with age, because the conversations that I tend to have is, I've been promoted, or I've moved into a new role, or I'm now doing this. And the response is, oh, wow, God, 31 and head of global marketing. Wow, you're quite young to do something like that. And then associating my age with my role, it's then about, maybe I am. Can I actually do my job? Or am I just winging it?
There's another stat, really interesting stat, that women rate their performance 33% lower than men typically. So I think there is something about being self-deprecating, and I am very guilty of this, and that this is something that I have to work on in myself, because there's a difference between being humble or humility, which is obviously a positive trait, and self-deprecating, where you're undermining your self-worth and you're putting yourself down.
So I think the takeaway for businesses is actually thinking about ways in order to, in essence, debunk imposter syndrome, which, and obviously we talked about sort of age being a reference, and another way to what we've sort of clarified as sort of like an empowering women is recognizing and supporting and engaging young women in the workplace. And Emma, I know you've got a real passion for this, especially within TLC.
Yeah, I'm hugely passionate about working with young women. I was fortunate enough to be a young woman working up within TLC.
You were 28 when you became COO, weren't you?
Yes. Yes, I was a
Not
young.
that age matters.
I was
Talked about that.
That's great.
I was very young, and so now I sort of want to give back to young women the same experience that I had from the incredible people that I was working with, who supported and empowered me. And I found this quote actually from Sunira Madani. She's a CEO of a big tech company. And she said, be scared and do it anyway. Be underqualified and do it anyway. Be messy, imperfect, and unsure, and show up anyway. Comfort is the enemy of growth. Get uncomfortable. And I love this because it throws away the whole,
a little bit, doesn't it?
well, the whole like imposter syndrome, you know, playing small, it sort of throws it out the window. Because when I was young and I was, you know, gaining more and more responsibility, I had this idea in my head of what a professional, you know, successful woman in business was like. So I became very serious, and I, you know, was very like, I'm super organized and I'm going to be very serious about lots of very serious things. And actually in doing that, I think I just lost my personality. So I think encouraging people to just be messy, be imperfect. There is no perfect, and I'm certainly far from that now. But the more that I've learned that, the more I've become myself. And then the more, you know, I'm able to engage with people, you know, the more I'm able to do a better job. But I'm still messy. I'm still imperfect. I'm still completely underqualified, but I'm doing it anyway. And so I think that quote just sort of sums up everything that I feel about empowering women.
I mean, on that point, I think, you know, you and I are both mums, and I guess it's sort of like an additional pressure of feeling like you have to be perfect in yet another aspect of your life. You know, you want to be the perfect employee, you want to be the perfect mum, potentially the perfect partner, perfect daughter. There's just so many different expectations that we can, either society puts on us or we put on ourselves. But I think the point is, if you lose all that scattiness or that quirkiness, then there's a huge loss of personality and potentially ideas as well within a business, within a team, because you're trying to be this ideal that you have in your mind, and you're losing your originality. And actually, I think it's the imperfections that spark creativity within teamwork, and I think it's hugely important.
And I think as a business, I think encouraging that imperfection, you know, allowing people to make mistakes, putting them into situations that, you know, maybe they're not qualified for, but they have a voice, and they, you know, give them a platform to contribute without, you know, making them feel alone. So that comes with the collaborative culture that we talked about earlier. I think that's a way to give people that confidence, you know, early on in their careers.
And I think, as you said, sort of making sure they're in the room, making sure they've got the confidence to speak up. It's not, you're not just here to sit and learn. We want you to be a part of the conversation without giving that confidence, especially in the likes of meetings. Obviously here we do a lot of sort of brainstorms when we're thinking about work for our clients, and we sort of have as many people in that room as possible. And it doesn't matter what level you're at. I mean, we're relatively flat here, but it's I think it's giving young women the platform.
And they represent the Gen Zs that we often have to target as well.
Absolutely.
And learn so much from them. But I think personality, again, just coming back to that point, encouraging people to be themselves more, and not attaining to this idea of perfection that doesn't exist, that actually we want people to come and feel like they can be who they are outside of work with their friends, and be a bit silly, and, you know, because that immediately disarms people, makes them feel more comfortable naturally.
Definitely.
So I think that's really important.
Elodie, one of the things you touched on was, of course, being a mum, which you both are. And I think, again, sort of core part in order to empower women in the workplace is supporting mums. So I think, obviously, we talked quite heavily, didn't we, about mums and also carers as well.
I think, I mean, for me, this comes back down to the values that we talked about earlier: empathy, compassion. And I think, yes, we still live in a world where the burden of childcare often does fall on women, but obviously we want to be part of the change where, you know, it is more equal. And so I think as a business, it's not treating, you know, mums differently from dads. You know, I work on a board with another board member who has children the same age as me, and, you know, we have the same challenges. He has to run out, you know, because his child's sick, and he has to go and, you know, pick her up, and you know, we're treated the same, and no differently, because I'm a mum and he's a dad. And I think, you know, taking an interest, and you mentioned Alec before, and I'll say his name again, because I don't know if he's listening. Hopefully he is. But Alec really goes above and beyond to, you know the names of everybody's children that he works with, and he knows when they're not well, and who knows when their birthdays are, and taking an interest, so that yes, it is a juggle, being a working parent, and sometimes it comes with real challenges and you feel frazzled at times. But if the people that you're working with take an interest and understand your personal circumstance, I think then you can know how you can best support them to be the best versions of themselves. So I think we do live in a world where it is more on mums, but obviously we want to try and create a world where it isn't, where it might be if that's your own personal circumstance, but that we treat carers of young people same.
I think just the way we support individuals at work on their projects, and it's important to support parents as well in progressing within their career, and that as well is a team effort. It'd be difficult to join the board, I think, as a mother, if you didn't have supportive family network and some friends and a business that was also behind you. You can't do it all on your own.
It's that whole thing about being perfect, because sometimes you do see these like super people, and the reality is that they're not super people. They've just got a lot of support.
Exactly.
And they're probably feeling just as overwhelmed as we are, and just as messy and imperfect.
I think it's sort of the making sure that wherever you are, you've got that open forum, and you talk about it. You say, you sort of clear again. Being able to speak up, talk to your managers about, right, this is my situation. I mean, we sort of had it, we were doing a session a couple of days ago on this, just to go through what we really wanted to cover. And we had to do sort of a second part because you guys needed to go and pick up the kids, didn't you? And and I was sorry. But it's having that flexibility. It's making sure that as a business, it's not unnormal, do you know what I mean? Exactly. And it's just the way of life, and women shouldn't have to have that pressure or the anxiety that comes with having to leave work or being at home certain times. It's all of those things, and it's obviously the same for men that are having to do it as well.
We're collecting the future generations of empowered women.
Exactly. Or men who support.
Exactly.
So I think we've covered such a huge amount, and we could actually talk about this for a long time, but I'm conscious of time because we started late, so apologies for that. But we could be here for hours and we could talk about so many other elements. But what I wanted to do is just check any questions that we might have had from you guys. So there was one. Do we have any examples from TLC where either of you were pushed outside of your comfort zone?
Oh my gosh, every day.
And that is okay to say.
Absolutely every day, and I couldn't be more grateful for it. I mean, you said it. I was 28, and when I was group COO, dealing with challenges far beyond my level of experience, but that's how I learned. But I think there's putting people outside of their comfort zone, and then there's putting people outside of their comfort zone, but making them feel supported, knowing that it's okay to make mistakes. I think it depends on what structure is there to catch you if you fall. And yes, I've been thrown outside my comfort zone every day, almost since I joined TLC, but in such a supportive way that it's just been such an incredible thing for my professional journey and my life. So yes, and I try and do that with all the people that I work with, but again in a supportive way.
Another question that's come through, which would be great to hear from you, Elodie, but I might also answer it from my perspective as well. So the question is, what would you tell yourself at the start of the journey, or of your journey?
Of my career?
Yes.
When I started?
Yeah. Or even when you were younger, anything. Put you on the spot here.
That has put me on the spot. Do you know what? That I think in every business you'll meet, there'll be somebody that you have to bring up a challenge with. Yeah. That's just nature of where people are. But that's okay, and it doesn't have to impact on your professionalism or the quality of the work that you deliver. All you have to do is just chat to that person. If there's something going on, the best thing to do is just to have this an open conversation. And so you're speaking up for yourself, but also for the wider cause, so the project and the team. You're just trying, what you want to do is smooth things out all the time. I think if there's this culture where people feel that they can talk and they can be themselves and it's okay, then you can go far and you can be comfortable in your everyday life and not feel the constant worry of have I offended somebody or hurt somebody.
I think that would be mine. It would just be like, be yourself. It
Yeah.
took me ages to learn that, which just seems so crazy, doesn't it? But I think it really wasn't until I was maybe in my 30s that my personal Emma and my work Emma sort of merged together. They were so separate, and I wish I'd known earlier that I could just be myself.
I think that's quite interesting in terms of, actually, a lot of people will say, and I've definitely said it, these words have come out of my mouth, is I want to keep my outside of work and who I am very separate from work. But actually, I think that they have to have a connection at the end of the day, because you're spending so much time with these people, probably more time with people in your office than you do at home. And if there isn't that connection, then you don't get that support and you don't get that sort of empowerment element. I think for me, I would tell my younger self to not doubt myself as much. I think a lot of the time, as I'm quite career orientated, but at every step I thought, should I go for that job, or should I just stay where I am because I'm comfortable, and actually not doubting myself, or do I have enough experience to go for that job? Or even if I've gone quite far through a couple of interviews, I'm still doubting myself whether I'm capable for it. And so I would tell my 20-year-old self to just bloody go for it.
That's the thing, right?
Debunking.
Because if you could do it all in that job, then that job's too junior for you. You need to go to the next one.
So it's building that confidence. So, we've got another one. Is there anything specific to women or men that they can do to empower other women?
I think all the things that we've said. So I think it's obviously that's the responsibility of the company, but I think that if the company is taking the lead on all of those things, then it's about that being reflected in the whole top of the organisation down to the very bottom, and everybody fostering that collaborative environment, it bringing young people to the table, early on, giving them a voice, having an initiative that people can, sign up to and get behind. I think all of those things that we discussed, it's doing them on a company level, but also on an individual
I'd
level
also
as well.
add maybe not to associate, we were saying female traits to just the typical female traits just to women. So not just think, oh God, here we go, she's being all emotional. Actually, that's just a human thing. It's not just a female thing to be emotional. It's just maybe we are, maybe some women feel like they can express themselves in that sense more than some men feel that they can do. So it's not putting stereotypes, I think, on women.
I think it's also what we talked about a little bit earlier in terms of actually educating yourself, dive into some of the webinars, podcasts, reading things, even some of the research. I mean, the research that Emma had done, there's in terms of how imposter syndrome started. When you told me I was like, oh my God. And then it kind of turns your head on actually the meaning of it and what it should become, which actually leads on to probably the last question we've got time for, which is how do you see the future when it comes to female imposter syndrome? So do you think all companies will need to get on board?
Female imposter syndrome?
We're obviously where we've been talking about debunking.
Well, I think that it's interesting, isn't it, that it was coined in 1978, because think about that time, a lot of industries were completely male run and women were imposters in a way. So it made sense to have this term imposter syndrome then, maybe because women were, coming into, all male environments. And I think that, as time goes on, yes, we've still got a way to go. Obviously, we're on a journey, but boy, we've come a long way since 1978. So I think it is about normalizing those feelings that, people often associate with having imposter syndrome, calling it out if you see it in people that you're working with, if you feel like they are retreating into themselves and that they lack that self-belief is, you know, calling it out in them and saying those things that you're feeling. I felt them too when I was your age, and that guy over there, you know, who looks really confident, he feels them as well, you know, and normalizing them, validating them so that, you know, we can actually get rid of it. You know, I think the future is, and I don't want to invalidate people that genuinely feel that way, because of course many people do, but I think the future is that term is a thing of the past.
I would hope that, so my daughter in 20 years time will be about 21. So I would hope that in 20 years time she will feel a lot more confident in herself than we felt in our 20s. But that's not just what companies need to do, it's more society in general, and that starts from a very, very young age. I think from the toys that we expose our boys and girls to everything that we say to them as they grow up, so that it's a big piece of work I think we need to do all together.
Definitely. I'm going to do this one last one because we've got so many questions coming through. So thank you so much, everyone. So we can tell this is obviously a topic that we all want to be talking about. But the last one, can you all please share one inspired confidence tip for us, please? So something to inspire confidence.
Okay, I've got one.
Oh, you've come prepared.
I didn't actually have a clue you were going to say this, but I'd written down one of my favourite quotes is from Marianne Williamson. It's a long quote, so I'm not going to say all of it, but one of the lines in it, and I think this is so powerful: "Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others won't feel insecure around you."
Nice.
Yeah. So I think all of us playing bigger in our lives.
Yeah.
So this was to feel more confident.
Yeah, a tip.
Just if you're not you, then the world is missing out on whatever qualities you as a unique person can bring.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has something to bring that nobody else has.
Yeah.
So if you're not bringing it to the table, then everybody else is missing out.
Yeah.
So,
really nice.
Maybe.
Bit
cheesy.
That's true.
I would say to just own either making a mistake and owning that. So there's times where if you've sent out the wrong email or you've made a mistake or in calculations, anything like that, just go, hands up, I made that mistake, but I'm going to find a solution, or I'm going to work with people to build that solution, because confidence in owning your mistakes, I think, is one of the biggest things.
Huge.
Especially, I have to admit, especially for women to say.
Yeah.
It happens to everyone.
I think if you're a senior woman, model that.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
model that and say, you know, and we have that, you know, with, you know, Nick, who's the founder of the business, you know, he's a big advocate for putting your hands up and saying, I got that wrong. And I think as a leader, that is such an important thing to model for anyone coming up through business.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. Well, I think we are about to run out of time, but we said that we could talk about this for a long time. But so
if the other questions,
I know. If anybody does have any more questions, then please send them through. The chat will be live, and we will send our responses over. But ladies, thank you so much for joining me. It's been amazing. Grateful to both of you. So thank you everyone for listening. We will have the next episode up live in the next couple of weeks. So please join and look out on LinkedIn for when that's due. But thank you so much, everyone, and have a great Easter weekend.
Have a good bank holiday weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.